Hockeytown, it's a place where dreams are found. We fought so many battles here. Now we're the ones that they will fear. The cup resides within our town. We won't stop no letting down. The cup is ours for all to drink. It's our time, let's rock this ring.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Hockeytown Rundown. You are here with us, your beautiful hosts, once again, Zack, Carlo, and Derek. Boys, happy Sunday. What's going on?
Happy Sunday.
Just another beautiful day in what is snowy, sunny, cold Michigan. That's almost April. I really don't know anymore. Beautiful bipolar Michigan. How are you guys doing?
Not as bad as you are. I got no snow, and it's sunny outside.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually really nice.
Oh, that's
Yep.
cool. I don't know what that feels like.
What about you, Carlo?
No snow, man. We got lucky. I mean, they were talking about like a crazy snowstorm. I'm like, okay, I'll see it when I believe it, or believe it when I see it. No snow, and it's nice, clear skies. It's cold, mind you, but sunny. Not a cloud in the sky and no snow. So we will take that all the way to the bank.
I think that's a sign you need to get out of Kalamazoo there, Derek.
Technically in Portage, I guess. So, not much better.
All right. Well, there you go. Well, thanks for joining us on this brand new episode once again. Why don't you guys go ahead, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button down low. Sorry, you can't see my fingers, but it is pointing down. Why don't you hit the thumbs up button? Let's try and get it to 20 as usual. Yes, you heard it here. Get it to 20. We definitely appreciate that. That helps us out. And if you're on Spotify, why don't you go ahead and hit that follow button and then rate us the 5 stars. 5?
I'll throw it up for Zack because you can't see his hand.
Thanks, Derek. I got a lovely new
5.
virtual background. Yes, we have switched over platforms. So hopefully this one gives us a lot better and greater things than the other one did. So throw them under the bus and let's get right into it, boys. So as you can see the rundown below, the Detroit Red Wings did lose to the Pittsburgh Penguins 6-3. They did beat the Columbus Blue Jackets in overtime 4-3, and then beating the New York Islanders in a very, very important game to keep that second wild card spot against the New York Islanders 6-3, and then going and losing to the Nashville Predators with, I think there was like under 10 minutes left in the game, 1-0. Rasmussen using his demon eye skills on the opponent, and Jeff Petrie, as usual, losing track of the puck. But we'll get into that. And so, boys, real quick, we got some exciting news. You guys will see that here shortly. But just to kind of give a quick rundown on this game, Detroit loses 6-3 to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Same song and dance when you don't have Captain Dylan Larkin out there. It seems like we're beating a dead horse at this point, right? And so it was all right. It wasn't. This team just lacks any type of defense without Dylan Larkin out there. And the only reason we can say that is because we got to witness that against the New York Islanders, beating them 6-3, right? But going into the Columbus Blue Jackets game, it really was the same thing, right? You go down early, you're down 2-0, you somehow bring yourselves back to life, tying it, you go down again, and then you're able to tie it thanks to Lucas Raymond being able to activate his clutch gene. And he absolutely has. Thank you, Lucas Raymond. All hail Magic Conch.
Everybody loves Raymond, baby. Oh.
Everybody loves Raymond, and then everybody also loves Patrick Kane too, boys, because Showtime came out to play and thus getting another OT game winner for us. What is that? That's like his 3rd or 4th for us so far this year. And Lucas Raymond, he's just been on an absolute tear. But going into the Detroit-New York Islanders game, Dylan Larkin, our captain, comes back. Look, I'll give you guys some space to actually talk here. Don't want to hear me ramble on too much, but what does it mean, boys, to have Captain Dylan Larkin back into this lineup? Clearly it means a lot because they beat them twice as many goals as they scored on us.
I mean, it's just crazy to see the 180 this team actually makes when their captain's in the lineup. The talent apparently is there, but is it just zero leadership out there? Like, what is happening? they played great. And that's what we needed the last 8 games, minus a Larkin, and it wasn't there. Like, I don't understand the concept right now. I am still mind blown. I've been mind blown. We've known it was happening. This happened before already once this season. We knew it was going to happen again. Still mind blowing, though, after the January and February we had. But hey, we won. And we looked good doing it.
We sure did.
We'll take it. We'll take it. I think Larkin coming back in, like especially during that game, I think that alone adds a lot of energy to the room and to the group just because he's back, you know what I mean? And the anticipation of waiting and knowing is kind of over. He's in. And yeah, I think that in and of itself gives the players a lot of jump. But I also think that it is true. I mean, we've been kind of hard on Derek Lalonde, and not for bad reason. Like, I think he deserves to have some accountability during that brutal stretch. But he's been saying a lot that, you know, and it's not really a secret. Like, Larkin coming in slots the team better. And I agree with him. I think we all would agree with him. It's just crazy how one player and different mix-up and matchups result in an 8 games like dive, which is nuts. Yeah. But I really do think Larkin does slot the lineup better. And then when it comes to that matchup with Larkin in the lineup, it's just a lot more even, player to player and skill set to skill set when it comes to the entire line. So he's back. He looks great. I mean, he had his first game back, 16 and a half minutes of ice time. He scored 2 goals. He was definitely back to being Dylan the Motor Larkin, doing his thing, playing really, really well. And yeah, I mean, we're stoked to have him back. Hopefully he can keep on keeping on here and we get off to the races here. But I guess turn it back over to you, Zack. So I know you want to kind of get into that Nashville game because I thought there were some very interesting things to take from there.
Yeah, I mean, what more can I say about the Nashville game other than, yeah, like I mentioned earlier, between Rasmussen and Petrie, that whole entire segment of that rush by the Nashville Predators, Christian Fischer bobbling the puck on a stick to them just applying pressure on the goalie. I mean, outside of all that, I thought they looked all right. This whole game just showcased, you know, that this team, I'll give credit to Nashville. They did really good at shutting down the Red Wings and key aspects of the game in certain ways. Like they just played a really good shutdown game. But the Wings had plenty of opportunities. They just couldn't convert the whole entire game. I thought Saros looked really good. Alex Lyon played fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But that
gives him a break for a couple games.
And that's, you know, we're kind of going back into that cycle talking about it where, Carlo, I've mentioned this, where was Lyon just outperforming back then, much like how he had to do in this game? He outperformed his expectation personally. Maybe the expectation's higher because we're just so used to him being lights out, game in and game out. Lately, it hasn't been that case. But it comes down to workload management and how often that these opposing teams are shooting on him. Obviously, you know, 20 shots in the first period alone. That wasn't the case in this game, but yeah, for me, I just thought it was a good all-around effort against a team that has been on a hot winning streak. They're very much a playoff team, and I think it showcased to us that we can battle with playoff teams. You know, even if it is just Nashville Predators, who are just a wild card 1 team currently in the standings. But all around good effort. I thought they looked fine, but yeah, sometimes it feels like that the Wings just don't, and Lalonde said this, we don't have a Kucherov, we don't have a McDavid, we don't have a Draisaitl. We need someone close to that on this team that can just kind of take over the reins and do that. Lucas Raymond is becoming that guy, but I would like to have another one. He just wasn't able to convert either. So that's my rant on the game as a whole. Who wants to rant off next?
Carl, I'll let you go the first this time. I took last game.
Okay. Yeah, I think like DeBrincat, I mean, he had the most shots on goal out of all the players against Nashville. to your point, were they quality high impact shots? I don't think so. Like I think one or two came from like between the hash marks and the red line, or sorry, the blue line. So to your point, I don't really think the quality is there, but he's definitely frustrated. He's definitely gripping his stick very, very tightly. He's a goal scorer, so I don't think we need to realize or need to, dive into it too much or dissect it too much to understand that he wants to score some goals, and he's going to. Don't get me wrong. But I'm actually impressed with the game yesterday to keep Nashville contained for 2.5 periods. I thought that alone was very impressive, considering I believe there was some stat that I saw where they've scored first or they've scored in the first period for X amount of games in a row. And Detroit looked very good. Against that team. It seemed like all 4 lines were rolling. They were playing the matchup that they were asked to execute on. I thought it was a great game. To the goal, defensive breakdown. I don't think there's 1 or 2 people to blame. I think there's almost the entire line. I just think that whole line was gassed. And there was a few people out of position and a few people just not extending enough or, really emptying the tank. And we collapsed. They scored, which is going to happen with a team like that who's as hot as they are. Credit to the guys for pushing over, the last 4 or 5 minutes of the game. They were pushing very hard. There was a couple chances at the dying seconds that could have gone in. And then, of course, Saros was playing out of his mind. Like Detroit had quite a few high impact chances on there. I think they only had 22 shots. Out of those 22 shots, a good percentage of them were high impact. I mean, it's Saros. He is probably one of the better goalies in the league right now. He's nuts. So I'm not disappointed with the outcome. Obviously, the points would have been great, and it would have been awesome to get a point in Nashville, but not disappointing to see them play that game and as complete as they did in comparison to the last stretch was awesome. And I will say Simon Edvinsson once again looked like a pro. Like he looks like he belongs. And I'm really excited for him because he's been looking phenomenal. Even that game against the Islanders, when he that reach of his saved that puck from going over the blue line, and then 15 seconds later, it's in the back of the net. It was incredible to see. He looks awesome, and I think we have a pretty good chance to do what we were thinking we were going to be doing in January or February with this lineup, the way it's slotting right now, and obviously with people healthy again. So that's kind of my little rundown on the last 4, Simon Edvinsson, and that Nashville game. Derek, it's all you, buddy.
Before you go, Derek, I have one request for you, is that I want you to touch on the Mo Seider fight because it was his first fight in the NHL. And I do want to say this real quick. Pardon me for not bringing up that, yes, during this stretch, Simon Edvinsson was called up to the Red Wings and that he has looked fantastic. And no, he will not be going back down to Grand Rapids Griffins. Derek, sorry. I apologize. Go ahead, buddy.
It's okay, but I'm surprised you didn't talk about the fight right away. It's literally behind you.
I know.
I mean, that was probably the most exciting part of the entire game besides, everyone gets shutting down everybody else. Like, it was a good game. I'm not upset with how they played out there. Let's be honest. I'm going to be happy with anything better than the last 8 games they played before the Islanders. I'd say after the first period of the Blue Jackets game, everything past that's been pretty decent.
Yeah.
But if they keep playing the way they're playing, especially against a team like Nashville, who just got done beating the Florida Panthers, who everyone's thinking might be the Cup contender this year, along with Avalanche, I'm pretty content with how they're playing. That's a good game. Obviously, like you said, we just had one line that got caught out there too long, got tired, gassed, and they couldn't finish what they're supposed to do, and the puck got in. It was going to happen. We're all sitting there watching that happen, and we're like, okay, when's it going to go in? It's either going in or someone's going to ice it out, and no one could ice it out.
Nope.
Yeah. But, if we keep playing like that, the way they are, especially against Nashville and the Islanders, I think Carlo's right. We're back on track where we were in January and February for that wild card spot and to stay up for the playoffs. And we don't have the worst schedule ahead, so hopefully it's something good that's going to happen. And yes, Mo Seider beat the crap out of, who was that? Forsberg?
Forsberg.
Yeah, that was a nice little fight. Oh, thank you, Seider, for your first NHL fight. Congratulations, buddy. And you did wonderful. That was a great fight. I did not expect it either. Came out of nowhere.
Yeah, I tried my best to really get his uppercut in the frame here. If you can tell that's what he's doing, and the fact that he switch hitted on him too.
Yeah,
that was awesome. But not to rip on him too much. I thought that was a very good fight. He stood on his own and did what he had to do. Props to him. However, I still think that he should hit up Darren McCarty for some punching bag lessons there to get some momentum going in those fights, because is he lefty or is he righty? I have to know now, because he definitely looked more comfortable pounding with the left fist than he did with his right.
He's a German machine, so he's both.
Ambidextrous. I like that.
He's both. I will say though, I was super nervous when I seen him switch up. Like, I got excited because I'm like, oh my God, this guy's switching up and feeding this guy. But then I'm like, wait a second, don't break your hand. Please do not break your hand. I was so nervous, but he looked great. He held his own. He looked awesome. That hair flowing. Oh, that was just, that's going to be on the highlights for a while.
Someone made a tweet right after it happened saying, am I watching a hockey game or is this a commercial for Head and Shoulders?
Good one. It's a good one.
Derek, you looked like that you had more to say real quick too, bud.
Oh, no, I was going to lead off the fact that he actually might be the new face of Head and Shoulders here soon.
Yeah.
He should be. Honestly, that would be a great deal for him. I'm sure he would never have to worry about buying shampoo ever again. So, but no, great fight by Seider. I thought, following what you said, Carlo, I thought that was a fantastic game. Definitely one of the better games. I mean, just that one goal not to call anyone out, had Fisher not, had the puck slip off his stick, and then Petrie not being able to clear the puck, and then Rasmussen not using his demon stare abilities on the op. Not trying to throw anyone under the bus, even though I just named out 3 players there. It was a great win. It was a great game overall. I mean, was it boring? Yeah, it was a little boring, but that. It just reminded me of like the 2000s type of hockey where you would see multiple games going 1-0, shit like that, but I thought that this was great. They stayed competitive with a Nashville Predators team who is red hot, and I couldn't have asked for anything more, except for maybe 2 goals to get the win. But they were this close to taking it into overtime to at least getting 1 point out of it.
Yeah.
So really no one's fault. It was just a mishap, honestly. So no hard feelings towards that third line with Fisher, Kopp, and Rasmussen. And then much to blame on Petrie, because we're allowed to do that. We always have to have one scapegoat. Oh, yeah. But with that being said and done, surprise, our first collab happened today. And so without further ado, why don't we go ahead and take a watch of that with Hockeytown West Podcast.
Welcome back to Hockeytown West Podcast. So we've got the guys from Hockeytown Rundown with us today, and we just kind of want to get a little update from them with our players. We've been loaning a couple players up to the wings this week, and so we wanted to get an update from them. Simon, one of our best defensemen, and then also Jonathan Berggren, who's up there as well for the past 2 weeks now, I think it's been. So I mean, the Griffs are looking good without him. We'd obviously love to have him still here, but I want to hand the floor over to Hockeytown Rundown, and we'll start with Zack.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for allowing us to come on here. We definitely appreciate it. And it's been a long time coming, honestly. I remember us reaching out to each other around this time last year, and we were trying to get things figured out, but we were both just starting out, right? And so it's been a long time coming, but we appreciate y'all for having us on. Yeah, my name is Zack, one of the hosts here at Hockeytown Rundown, just living my beautiful life here with my 2 doggos, and living in Holy Land, Toledo. And I'll go ahead and hand it over to Derek and Carlo.
Well, boys, it's good to see you guys here. Thanks for letting us on. I'm over here pretty much south of you guys, down in Kalamazoo. So I'm kind of in a nice little mixture between the Grand Rapids Griffins and Detroit area. So I get the fun mixture of both. Unfortunately, I don't get to watch enough Grand Rapids Griffins, so that's what I got you guys for. So it's great. So thank you.
I guess I'm all alone over here in Canada, man. You guys are all over there across the pond. I'm in Windsor, not too far away from all you guys. But Nick, Brandon, thanks for having us on. We're really excited to be here and really excited to kind of get your brain power on the Griffins and how they can potentially make the Wings better. And obviously, we'd love to give you guys some updates on what we're seeing from the Griffins players that are stepping up in Detroit. So, like I said, man, excited to be here. Thank you guys again. And yeah, let's kick this thing off.
I think the best way to kick this one off is to pass this one around the horn. Why is Jonathan Berggren not playing? What is going on? What is your guys' opinion of this whole scenario here? Because I know if he plays one more game, he can't come back without clearing waivers. So I don't know if they're just waiting for that magical game or what's going on. Like, what is your opinion of this?
Honestly, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they're being very strategic and cautious with the fact that if he plays one more game, he's got to stay or he's got to clear waivers. We all know, and I'm sure we all would agree, he's not clearing waivers, which would suck for the both of us. So it's a little bit of that, but I also think Derek Lalonde is just, I don't know. It's at the end of the day, it's his decision. And you know, I look at David Perron and I see Berggren kind of filling into that role. Perron's kind of regressing, in my opinion, as of late. Although, side note, he did have the leading hits on the team last night for yesterday's game, but I digress. Anyway, believe it or not, I don't know. I feel like they're waiting for something to happen, whether it be injury, whether it be Perron to take a little bit of a back seat. Because I really don't know what other role he's going to fill. And I'm talking about Berggren. I have no idea what role he's going to fill on the team other than David Perron's. Now, this is just my opinion. I could be way offside on this one, but that's just the way I'm looking at it. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to it's a coaching decision, 100%. And then, of course, I'm sure Steve's got a little bit of pressure on that as well because you better be very sure because he's not clearing waivers if we have to send him back down. So that's kind of my take on it. Zack, Derek, what do you guys got?
I mean, if we go off what Steve's saying, like if Bergeron's playing the way they need him to do, he didn't care at all if he got up to waivers. He's told us all. Like, it's understandable. Like, he's not playing exactly what we need. He's playing that nice middle six ground right now. What you said, Carlo, is pretty much taking that place of Perron down there. But at the same time, is that what the Red Wings need to keep moving forward in the league? I don't know really right now because obviously we need some more point scorers. And since he's been up, he hasn't been doing bad, but he hasn't really made that impact. Again, he came up during that time of our nice little horrific streak without Larkin. I don't know what's up with the Red Wings when we don't have him. I don't want to blame that on anybody, but poor Bergeron came up during that time and didn't really produce as much. So I really don't know if they're going to try to risk waivers because, like you said, Carlo, if he hits waivers, he's gone.
Yeah, we're not talking about a great player. He's gone. Yeah.
Yeah, we can't keep him. Someone's going to want that middle six ground. That's going to be a perfect player for the team. He is NHL ready, but we still just have him down there. So, Zack, show some light for me here. Like, what do you think is happening with this situation?
Your ability to call Berggren Bergeron will never cease to amaze me. I absolutely love it. I wish we had Bergeron on our team, Derek, but going over it. Yeah.
John Bergeron. I don't know what's wrong with me.
I get it. You know, you don't want him to go into the waiver aspect, right? Okay. So at this point, for me personally, I'd rather see him flourish down in GRG, right? I really don't understand what the purpose of keeping him up as a healthy scratch is. But looking at the lineup, I mean, you have Austin Czarnik, who's filling a role as the 4C. They push Veleno over onto the wing, right? Great. Okay, maybe Veleno gets a little bit more going. Since the experiment of him playing the 2C when Larkin was out wasn't going so well. And then when you had Berggren in there, you know, he looked fine. But even on the power play, you could tell that something was missing. And I don't know if the structure of the two teams are different in that aspect, or if maybe we're just expecting a little too much out of Berggren. To me, I just think it's silly at this point. If you're going to have him up, just send him back down. Let him flourish in Grand Rapids Griffins. Let him go and play in the playoff push there. But much like Carlo said, I don't know if they're waiting for an injury to happen and they're just holding him on until that kind of surfaces. But then it goes back to that he only has one game left. So at this point, just let him go back down. I do find it very silly and slightly alarming that we're just allowing him to sit up in the press box for the last couple games, right? Because I want him to get the exposure. I want him to get the feel of what it's like to be in a playoff atmosphere without actually being in the playoffs. And that's what the Red Wings are in right now. We saw it in last night's game against the Nashville Predators when they lost 1-0, and they only lost off of a fluke goal, essentially, right? Where the puck just kind of got lost. Everyone's just kind of sitting there. Rasmussen's doing the devil stare eyes, trying to get them, confused, whatever. And then Petrie just kind of letting it go, it's just really tough and frustrating, honestly, for me. And so, yeah, I'd rather see him move back down if that's what it's going to come down to. So,
yeah.
I think you're on the same, Zach. I think you're on the same page as a lot. Like what me and Brandon have been preaching all year is just patience with Wings fans. And it's funny, as soon as everybody's like, "Oh, Bergie should be up. He should be up. He should be playing. We need him in the top 6 role." And then he goes up, and I feel like everybody kind of piled on him on his first game. And he had a turnover that led to a goal, and then, that's not great for somebody's confidence. He's coming into this new team. Like, I would say it's a newer team from last year. There's a lot of different players he's playing with, and it's like trying to get comfortable. Going against Vegas was his first game. Turnover leads to a goal. They lose that game. Like, so I see that aspect. Derek, you mentioned too, like, is that where David Perron has been at? Is he on that power play? Is that the spot you kind of see Bergie trying to flourish in?
I mean, in this case, I would have to say if any position that's going to be filled by him, it would definitely be that spot that Perron has right now. So I can see him definitely excelling in it, especially from what he does down in Grand Rapids. I just wanted to bring that up to the next level. And then, holy crap, our power play is just an ungodly force to reckon with on the first and second line. Like, whoo, who's going to be upset by that?
It's been funny over here is Waddy's been putting the younger guys in those power play roles to be able to get them the points, get them the confidence, and then we really weren't getting anything going. And so then he went back to the veterans being on it, and then it started playing a little bit better, and we saw a little different scheme there. So, so I don't know if that's something Lalonde's going to look at as well, of like moving Perron off, putting Bergie in to try to get him going. But you mentioned the waivers thing too, Derek, and if you think, like, I want to kind of get your opinion on it. Do you think if he ends up playing that game this year, he's up with Detroit for the rest of the season? Do you think he re-signs with Detroit?
Well, that's a scary thought right now, because we all know that the first extension already got dismissed. They said no, but obviously that's something that you can't really look at. Everyone's going to say no to the first offer. That's what you just do, because obviously you want to make a little bit more. But I could definitely see Berger, or I can see Berger's down there and his company getting a little more on the upset side with how things are going, though. So if I want him to re-sign, obviously, I think that no one here doesn't. But at the same time, I understand their confusion and probably their upsetness on how the whole situation has been going so far. So I really don't know how that's going to play a part in this. But hopefully going forward, we just make the right decisions and the parties just come to a conclusion that we're all happy with. Even the fans.
Yeah, he's been an interesting aspect because he's been like kind of stuck he's in the weird timeline. He was before Steve, and now you add Patrick Kane, who brings way more value to the team than a younger prospect. But then you're also battling the father time, right? With Patrick Kane and the injury, and trying to put Bergie in to fill that role too. But and I want to touch on one thing with Carlo too. So me and Brandon talked about this, is David Perron's contract is up this year.
Yeah.
Do you see him resigning?
You know what, man? It's such a hard thing to think about, because when I look at David Perron and I kind of try to map the value he brings to the team, he's unreal at protecting the puck. I really don't think there's anybody better. Like, the guy is a gamer, and it's really hard to get a guy like that off the puck. So if we're going to have a conversation in comparing Burgers to Perron, I'm not confident, and maybe you guys can answer this, but I'm not confident Burgers can protect the puck as well as Perron. Mind you, Burgers hasn't paid his dues yet. He's still a prospect. He's still got a lot of ways to go. I'm not saying that it's not possible. It certainly is. But I think that's what the organization's probably looking at is do we want a puck protector on the power play to give Kane, Larkin, DeBrincat those opportunities to stay in the O-zone and put the pucks on net and hopefully score? Or do we not sign David Perron and Berggren comes in full time? So it's like, how do you make that decision? So that's where I'm like, I really don't know if Perron's going to re-sign. I'm sure he would want to, and I think if he does, it will be for a lot less of a AAV, just because, again, I do think he's regressed. But then you have to look at the entire makeup of the team and the chemistry within this locker room and this group to determine, do we want to go with Perron or are we going to take that chance on Berggren? I really think that that's what it's going to come down to. So in the offseason, if we find out that Perron is leaving, I think that's kind of our answer that, okay, Berggren's coming up, or at least that contract with Berggren's going to get some more juice added to it, if you will. But is Perron going to resign? Man, I honestly don't know. I really don't know. It's such a rock and a hard place for me because I want Berggren to come up. You know what I mean? But right now, there's just not that spot for him in the way the lineup slots. But I guess time will tell. In the next, 3-4 months or whatever, we will very much find out, because Yzerman did mention in his it was a trade deadline presser that he is not going to waste any time and he's going to get the veterans some answers right away, because he understands they're at that age where they have like small kids, they have families, they don't want to know last minute where they're moving or if they're moving. So I expect to see some movement on all that stuff like really short after the season ends. So I will see. But what do you think though, Nick? Like, are you kind of thinking the same thing I am? Like, do you think Berggren is that replacement for Perron? Am I being way too wishful thinking here, or what do you think?
I mean, we looked a lot with like Robbie Fabry as being in that kind of role of him replacing, just because of he's more of a shooter, he's more of a scorer. Perron's going to bring the hustle, the grind, the grit to the lineup on that end. So I think Bergie could do a better role, maybe a little bit cheaper than Robbie Fabry, in like maybe a bottom 6 role instead of that top 6. And like anytime Fabry takes a hit, everybody's like a little bit more deep breath, just like Zack did.
Last night's game when he took that hit too. I mean, everyone just
I thought he was done.
Well, the other thing I want to just throw in real quick, because I want to get Brandon's opinions on this too, is maybe I'd have to go back and look at the tape, but maybe Bergie's dealing with a small injury. Maybe they're setting him out just to get him going. I don't know. I'm just, there's got to be other reasons besides, like, I understand the strategic aspect of putting him up there to be able to get him into a game, rebuild his confidence, get him acclimated to the team and practice and everything like that. But like the coaching decisions have been very weird lately with Sprague sitting out, Bergie sitting out. So I don't know. I can't watch every Wings game. I'd love to be there at every Wings game too, if I could. But I'm just throwing things out there. And that crazy flu's going around. So maybe he's out with the flu. So I mean, these are other aspects that could come into play instead of him just sitting to sit.
I mean, that's what I was saying. That entire losing streak was that everybody had the flu. That's all it is. Once they get back Larkin, the flu's gone. It's okay.
I mean, we went through that early in the season in Grand Rapids too. There was a weird bug that went around that locker room, and they didn't have as much of a falling off as the Red Wings did during that time, but it was ugly.
Those games didn't matter as much either, though.
No,
at the beginning of season as they do now for the Wings.
No, exactly. And I think with Bergie, he's still a defensive liability to me at that level for some reason. In the AHL, after he came down from that last call-up, he looked really good and on both sides of the puck. And that's something that everyone had criticized him for. And yeah, he did go up there, make that small turnover, whatever. Then he drew a penalty right after. I think everyone forgets about that piece. He did, go out there and he's grinding, trying to figure it out. He's going to take more time. And I think at this point, he just needs to end up back in Grand Rapids. If he's going to sit in the press box, whether that's strategically so he can learn the game or not, I don't think he's gaining any value in that. These games for the Griffins are going to become high pressure here really soon. And I think he needs to be a part of that and adjust to the lineup. I mean, there was small changes here too, with Radim Šimić getting added. Like, we need everybody to be on the same page, because to transition to the next guy, I don't think he's coming back. And that'd be Simon Edvinsson, at least till playoff time if the Wings get bounced. Edvinsson looks like he has established himself as I'm not leaving unless you're going to keep drag me out of here kicking and screaming.
Yeah, he's been a breath of fresh air for us, honestly. And the one thing, the first call up that he had earlier this year, I love what he can do with his stick. His reach is outrageous, right? But I felt like that he was depending on that a little too much. This time around, he is a lot more physical, and that's what I wanted from him. So there's a huge difference, night and day difference from the first time earlier this year to now when he was called up. Yeah, I think you're exactly right there, Brandon, that it's up to him, and he's forcing the hand on Steve Yzerman, Lalone, saying like, hey, I'm not leaving until, whatever happens, I get injured or I just make a complete fool out of myself, right? And so far, he has looked absolutely fantastic, even being on pairings with, whether if that's Ben Sherrod or Jeff Petrie, where we really don't like Jeff Petrie. We kind of hope that, whether if that's Johansson or Wallinger can come up and maybe replace that spot for him, but something's got to give here eventually. But yeah, we are very, very happy with what Simon Edvinsson has done. I mean, we joked about it, right? I told you guys need to send him up here as soon as possible, right? But yeah, we're more than happy to give him back to you guys, but I think that this is a great experience for him because he's most certainly going to be on the Red Wings next season, without a doubt.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, from what I don't think he's going from him play, it's just like a whole new him out there. It's great to see, and especially like I've said in our podcast, like if you're going to make mistakes out there in the D, I'd rather see our prospect who's coming up make them other than a 34, 35-year-old veteran who's getting paid $5 million to make this mistake. Like, let the man learn, and then he gets better, instead of having the people that already learned and are failing us that aren't going to get better keep playing. It's like, at this point, I just want to see him up all the time, but I understand the fact that he still needed in Grand Rapids as well, but I digress. I don't know which one is better at the moment.
I mean, he's definitely needed here, but everyone was like wondering what Steve was doing when he got rid of Costin and all we got back was Radim Šimić. And we've seen him now for 2 games in Grand Rapids, and he's just an older Simon Edvinsson. He's not as flashy. He's not as aggressive, but he skates just like him. He's calm just like him. It's really weird because I haven't noticed Simon's absence since Šimić has stepped into the lineup. So it really all that trade did was open the door for Simon. I think that's what Steve was trying to do without saying, this is what I'm trying to do. So it makes sense to me, and I'm very happy with it. Yes, I want to see Simon back here for the playoffs, obviously, and there's no waivers concerns with him. And he can play as many games, I think, as he wants right now, and there's no concerns. But if the Wings, when they make the playoffs, I'd like to see Simon getting that experience up there too, much rather than over Jeff Petrie or anybody else really on the back end there outside of Mo at this point. So yeah, that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, no kidding. I thought the exact same thing, Brandon, when Steve Yzerman made that trade, and I kind of looked at that return. I'm like, this really seems like a plug for Edvinsson, for an Edvinsson call up. And then a few days later, the call up happens, which was obviously very exciting. But I mean, if you guys can try to watch the game recaps, the way he is like coaching on the ice and telling players where to be so he can move up in the lane to block a shot. I'll be honest, I was not expecting that to happen several times. One time I saw it, I'm like, this is a great sign. The next game, he got more ice time. He does it again. And you can see his communication with his line mates. It's unreal, telling people where to be positionally so he can go and attack a lane and get down and block a shot. It's incredible. He is unreal. I really don't see him going down. Not as long as, sorry, I kind of feel bad saying that. I just don't see it happening because he's adding such good value to this defensive core that is disastrous. I mean, we're talking about fundamental defensive collapses here, gentlemen. And with Simon Edvinsson, he slots them a little bit differently. He allows Lalonde to balance out the plus minuses a little bit within these D-men that we have. And we're seeing now a way more sound and structured defensive unit as a result of Simon Edvinsson. So big props to him. I'm like super pumped, if you can't tell, about Simon Edvinsson, because he's just been a real big breath of fresh air. I think Zack, you put it really, really well.
I love that breakdown that you just gave there, Carlo. And you want to know where you learned that from?
Tell me.
Our big goalie, Sebastian Kosa.
There we go.
As soon as you started telling us this, I saw Brandon and I both leap forward. We're like, all right, we saw him do this, and he makes sure that the goalie can see the puck because he was screening Kosa on a lot of goals, and Kosa's like, you got to stop. This is where I need you to go. And it just translates to the higher levels. So to see that, to hear that was like, that's a huge piece. I love that. I love that piece. I know Brandon want to say something or somebody.
No, that was a right on. Like seeing that communication with Kosa this year, then obviously with the rest of the team, is that built? Like that's not something he did last year. And yeah, he got his little brief call up before the Christmas break this year. There was really nothing there. The team was all out of sorts when he got that. But everyone said that we were over ripening Simon, having him down here the rest of the season. And clearly he had a lot more skills that he needed to learn. And the leadership skill was the biggest piece I think he's learned on this Griffins team. And I think Dan Watson's done a good job putting him in that position. And clearly it's translating well. So I love to hear that that's what you're seeing on the ice up there. That's fantastic. And yeah, Zach, I think you had a piece you wanted to add.
Yeah, so you actually took it right out of my mouth. That was going to be my question, was like, what has Dan Watson been expecting out of him? For a while, it seems like we were hearing not so much about Simon Edvinsson, but a lot about Albert Johansson. And so I believe there was Wing Wheel podcast where they did interviews with some Grand Rapids players and asking, who's the most underrated? Who's this one player that you really like? And each one of them brought up Albert Johansson. So I didn't know if that was a slide against Simon Edvinsson, maybe because everyone already knows what to expect out of him and what he can bring. But yeah, just really wanted to hear from you guys, what has attributed to the change from Simon Edvinsson from what we've seen last year or even right before Christmas, how you brought up Brandon. What is the key difference here from then to now that has made him into the stud that he currently is for the Red Wings?
I mean, I think the biggest difference is a defensive-minded coach. I mean, you have Dan Watson, who was a defenseman. You have Brian Lashoff as the assistant coach now, who obviously was a great defenseman. And I think he's learned a lot from both of them, but he's been given he's let off the reins a little bit, Ben Simon last year, he sheltered Albert Johansson. Albert Johansson spent third pairing minutes every game, never got moved up, and that's just why you never really heard anything about him until this season. And now he's been consistent second pairing, getting those minutes, and everyone's like, oh, wow, we do have something here. That's just because he's been allowed to flourish. And same with Simon. I mean, he's been on that first pairing all season, running the first power play on the Griffins team, just really taking all the minutes he could possibly get that are the high-pressure minutes, really just the Mo Seider of Grand Rapids at that point, getting the toughest minutes on this team and having to learn through that. He's had some defensive woes where we're like, Simon, buddy, what are you doing? And that's something that we were really concerned that was going to translate big time to Detroit. And we haven't seen it yet, thank God. And he's got to go. We understand he's going to learn through those mistakes. He's going to do stupid things down here because sometimes he's just trying to do too much. He likes to push it as far as he possibly can, but at the same time, he's learning in that process. And now that we understand that, it makes more sense. So that's why you hear more about Albert this year, just because he's getting that exposure. And then Simon's just been allowed to, really truly flourish under this coaching staff.
Yeah, one thing that I pulled from you guys a couple episodes back is you guys compared Simon to kind of like Ben Sherratt, if he can get to that ceiling. And I really liked that kind of comparison because you don't want to put too much on the kid. There are times that it's just like Brandon said, he makes a play and you're like, what were you doing there? Like you just kind of gave up, you turned it over. Like, what are we doing? Like this guy is not 100% focused all the time. And then there's times where he's taking it from blue line to blue line and scoring, to put it in overtime or to get that game tying goal. Like he's tried to make up for the mistakes. So it just like Derek, you said, you want to see these prospects up there. You want to see them make mistakes. You'd rather pay for that and get them the learning time. So, and I agree to a point because then you see it with Bergie who makes mistakes. Then it's now he's benched for 2 weeks or who knows why, the Bergie situation. But it's also you got to be careful because we saw Jasper Wallstedt moved up to Minnesota and get pounded for 7 goals. And then he hasn't been the same goalie since he's came back. So, and goalies are a little different, but you want to make sure you put these prospects in a good environment where the team is, where they're able to succeed. And if you have to shelter them in some sort of way or point, that's what you need to do. And with Albert, he's he's really learned and gained that first line minutes with Simon. And what you're going to see from him is a solid defenseman. He's gritty. He's going to, if he needs to punch you in the face, he's going to punch you in the face. But he plays sound defense, and I could see him up there next year getting a couple games, 9 or 10 games, just to kind of, get his feet wet. I could see him playing for the Wings the next 2 years, though, if it's not earlier. Now, you mentioned Vollander. Give him some time. Let him cook a little bit down here.
Yeah.
We like the guy, but he's sheltered right now. He's getting it together, but he'll be up there soon.
So is that the expectation moving forward? Let's say that Simon Edvinsson does make it to the big club full time. So it's going to be Aljo as the number one left-handed defenseman, Wallander as the second left-handed defenseman, right? Do you guys ever put him on the right side? No.
Well, you're forgetting Palika.
Palika, whatever he decides to make the jump too, right? Yeah, exactly. And so the defense,
Get ASP.
it's insane how deep we are as a franchise on the defensive end. And so I guess that leads up to the second question, right? Is do you expect either Aljo or Wallander to get traded by the time that they might be NHL ready based on the way that the roster is constructed for the Red Wings now? Because with Venturat, are we going to keep Jake Wallman when his contract's up in the next 2 years? I have a love-hate for Jake Wallman. These guys can attest to that, but I want to hear from you guys.
I don't think you see any of these guys traded, one without the return being just incredible, without getting that 9-game stint, without knowing what they truly have in with these guys. I don't think you see any movement there. I think you're just going to see solid progression over these next few years. So Simon's going to take that step. Albert's going to step into his role. Hopefully a year after that, he takes the same step that Simon did. Hopefully you see Vollander do the same thing over the next couple of years. You got to remember Antituamisto is out there too, and he's shocked us all in Grand Rapids this year. Kind of came in as a guy that we didn't really know what he was going to bring to the table. And obviously he spent some time in North America, so that helped too. But he's someone that you guys definitely want to watch out for. He has a wicked shot. He's the one defenseman on this team that's not afraid to shoot the puck. If it's on his stick, he's going to shoot it. If it gets blocked right away, he's going to pick it back up and he's going to shoot it again. Like, that's just the game that he brings. And dude, if someone touches him, watch out, because he's going to go back and kill him. That's my favorite part about his game. As soon as he's messed with, he will go back at them. He won't go start the stuff, but he'll go finish it. So with those guys, you're just going to see a natural progression, I think, in Grand Rapids over the next couple of years, where there's the blue line's going to be probably 3 or 4 young guys and a couple of veterans that in the AHL mixed with them. They lead them the way. So I don't think you see any crazy trades happen. I know I've said before, if Albert didn't get that shot this season, he's probably going to look elsewhere, because I believe his contract is up this year as well. Mm-hmm. So that is interesting. I mean, he was same draft year as Mo. That's another thing we got to remember. So God, we really hit well in that draft on defensemen. Good Lord. But anyways, I don't think they get traded.
I love how Steve has built this team. So you got to think about this as you've got Kosa here. He's probably another 2-3 years away. You got Trey Augustine behind it. Brandon says too. You got Trey Augustine behind him, who will be here in Grand Rapids in the next 3 to 4 years. You've got Carter Geilander, who just made it to us. You've got all these defensemen that have already been in the system. If everybody, there's no way Steve's going to hit on all these prospects, right? There's just no possible way that all of these guys make it to the NHL. First round pick. I actually looked at this the other day. Travis, our buddy in Toledo, sent me this. 74% of your first round picks make it. And then it drops to 34% in the second. And then 27 in the third. So there's no way, but like, these guys look so good right now. Like, I want to believe that everybody's going to move up from the back, and then he's just plugging forwards in as he's going. And like, we do have young forwards. Like, we have Lucas Raymond up there. We have Bergie that hopefully they stay. So, I mean, you've got people moving up, and I love how this is being built up. I mean, it's perfect if everything works out according to plan. But knowing Steve, who knows, And the big trade deadline, like, rumor was Noah Hannafin. And I'm like, no, he doesn't fit in the timeline based off of where everybody else is progressing and moving up. So,
correct.
You just gotta, the thing that I always preach to everybody is patience with this Wings team. You've got to let people develop. You don't want to see like Rasmussen who get called up a little bit too early, or Joe Veleno called up a little bit too early, and now they're really finding the role 3 years into the Wings. Is it 3?
Yeah.
3, yeah.
Yeah.
3. What was it, Brandon? 3, 4? Oh,
I don't know if Joe Veleno still found his way yet. Sorry.
I think this is Veleno's 3rd year. Yeah, I would agree with that too, Brandon. I don't know if he's quite found. He needs a flashlight. He's on the path, but he needs a light. He needs a little bit of a light.
Yeah.
I mean, he started off this year really well for us. Just kind of a
He
little
did.
bit of a letdown going through
Yeah.
the season.
It's just so strange with him because there are some games where he looks like he's like the Walmart version of Patrick Kane, and that's no disrespect by calling him that, because he does get flashy at times, but it's like every 10 games or so, he knows how to get into the right spots. I just wish that he could get a little faster, and I think that he would be a little bit better of a player. But yeah, Joe Veleno, he, like Derek said, he was hot at the start of the season, it seems like, and then it seems like it's just kind of falling down as time progresses. So I'm very curious to see what Steve does with him. But Carlo, real quick, you had some stats and probabilities that you mentioned like a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you wanted to bring that up real quick.
What I found was 62% of first round picks play, but less than 25% of second round picks survived. So it's kind of based off like high impact versus low impact. And then only 12% of third round selections survived as well. So this came from former GM Doug McLean saying that his math over the last decade showed that only 15% of second round picks ever become impact players. So I kind of took that information and that, I call it a formula, and I started looking at all the prospects and all the picks Yzerman's made, and the conversion rate's actually above average. Like it's pretty, like you were just talking about it. It's actually above average. So, and I'm talking about, I didn't include Berggren in there just because Berggren wasn't a Stevie Y pick, but between Raymond, Seider, Kosa, Edvinsson, Eljo, Mazur, Danielson, Casper, ASP, Wallander, and then Soda, I have a question mark on that. Wallander, I have a question mark on that. But those are that's the scope of players I'm looking at. And then I look at Steve's, that's 11 players. 2 question marks, so call it 9 almost locks, if you will. Some of them are locks. The other ones I think are going to be locks. And then 2 question marks, a total at 11. Yzerman's made a total of 43 picks, I believe, to date for the organization. So when you run the numbers on that, I'm like, okay, wait a second here. So the conversion rate is a lot higher than what you would expect it to be based off of, it's like a 25% conversion rate in terms of players coming to the NHL and actually being high impact. I mean, Raymond and Seider are already high impact. Edvinsson'S been here and he's been high impact every game he's been up. And then we look at, obviously the other guys that are still in GR that are cooking and baking right now, who I personally feel strongly about. I think they're going to come up and make a difference. Steve's conversion rate is pretty wicked. And I think that goes super unnoticed. What are your guys?
That's why I'm so excited. Looking back at picks, I'm like, it's crazy because I see the development, I see the players that we have, and I'm like, these guys all have potential to make it to the NHL. Like, we have a really good young team, but until it gets there, like, we just all have to be patient. Like, we're not calling Marco Kasper up. We're not calling. I'm on the fence with Carter Mazur right now, but Brandon feels differently on that.
I mean, I've seen glimmers of greatness from Mazur so far, and it took him a while this year to bounce back from his injury that he had in the offseason there. And it wasn't physically he was struggling; it was mentally he was struggling. He just didn't kind of know what to do with the puck. But he's definitely hit the back of the net quite a bit more as of recently, and he's been bounced around the lineup in so many different ways. Dan Watson utilizes him in many different roles with this team, so. He's going to take more time still. I don't think he's going to bounce as quickly as everyone thought, but at the same time, he's something to keep an eye on there. And I know you didn't know how to mention him with this, but Elmer is someone that should be talked about over the last few games. I'm pretty high on his play lately. He looked incredible over this last stretch and hasn't actually gone more than 2 games without a point since January 16th. So he's actually been producing a lot more, where you're talking about the beginning of the season going 5, 6, 7 games without a point. So the way he's playing lately, you're seeing aggressive side of Elmer, you're seeing the speed come back, you're seeing the hands that we all know he has, but you're also just seeing the hockey IQ start to really turn on. He's knowing where to place the puck. He's knowing where to go to get the puck. And this new role he's been fit into with being on a line with Matt Luff and Marco Kasper after being buried on the fourth line with Cross Hannes and Amadeus Lombardi for most of the season has really helped him flourish. Seeing him paired with those guys and actually producing, that's a good sign. Now, where he fits into Detroit, I have no clue, but it just gives me hope that there's still something there for him.
Yeah, and I think that's majority of Wings fans, at least a lot of Wings fans, it seems like they just want to call up Soda just for the pure fact of his height alone and his reach, which, okay, we could use that, right? I mean, it was great when we utilized that at the beginning of the season last year when we had, who was that we had Adam Ernie on the same line, I believe it was, and with Sundqvist, like the tree line or whatever, and it's great to see based on what you guys tweet out, right? The videos and all that stuff. That's how I keep up to date with the Grand Rapids Griffins. I mean, what, in your guys' opinion, what do you think that he still needs to work on? Or I guess also it's a two-parted question. What has he done to show that he could be ready to make that next step? While the points might not always be there, but what can he attribute and what has he currently attributed to the Grand Rapids all this time that he's been with you guys?
So for me, the biggest question mark for him was consistency. I think that's what we were lacking in him last season when he got sent back down. He never really found how to be consistent at this level. It was weird because he produced consistently at the NHL level for a good period there and then came to the AHL and couldn't do it. In the whole first half of the season, that was still the big thing. It was kind of like, what did we call him before? Bambi on skates.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the best description of his skating. And I think that's one of the things he's worked the most on this season was his skating. It's gotten dramatically better. If he can figure out how to consistently score or get points like he is right now, but be defensively responsible like he's been over the last stretch too, I think as long as he keeps doing that, we're going to see movement with him. That's all he needs to work on. Just be consistent because the skill set is there. And I mean, if he's going to produce in high pressure situations in this second line, I mean, I'm not talking he's going to ever be a second or maybe even third liner in Detroit. I think he'd be a great fourth line player in Detroit that could be bumped to the third line when needed. And he brings an aspect on the penalty kill that I think is really underlooked because of his size.
I think like Brandon touches on it, the consistency. I mean, it was very weird. And I think gone are the days where you see prospects come straight, like be drafted and go right to the Detroit Red Wings. And I think people need to realize that like Lucas and Mo were kind of the exceptions. You need to give them time. You're not going to see Elmer, you're not going to see another situation where I'm going to say this and then you'll see Nate Danielson plays 9 games next year in the beginning of the season for the ELC. But Elmer he needs that confidence, I think. And it's just getting, he just needs to continue to skate. I mean, when he's skating and he's skating hard and he's going, like once he gets that motor going, you can't stop him. What we'd both like to see more out of him is him being utilized in front of the net to screen the goalies. If he could get those deflections, be like that Johan Franzen type player, like that's what I'm looking for. Just he's a little bit taller. He's got better hands than Johan did. And I think he can score more. I mean, with all of those tools, he has the tools. He just needs to put it together, and he's getting that confidence. He's playing with better players with Marco and Matt Luff, and that's helping him elevate his game. So I think it's just getting that consistency. He may need another year or at least half a year here in GR before he gets that call up of the emergency call up kind of situation. Because we kind of learned that this week too, that there's only 3. You only get 3, or you get only 3 call ups throughout the year, but emergencies you have unlimited.
Correct. Yeah, and going back to my point too, like a lot of people want him to come up and succeed. A lot of things that people were saying, we were hoping that he could be the next Tage Thompson, right? It doesn't look like that's going to be the case based on what you guys are saying and what you guys have seen. Could that still happen? Anything is possible in the NHL, right?
Yeah, I think there's something. I don't think it's going to reach a Tage Thompson level. by any means, but I definitely think there's something still there. And the killer instinct, honestly, has started to show more recently. I'm seeing the aggression there, but I'm seeing the confidence. And that's where I think he was lacking the most. He didn't have confidence in his play for the first half of the season. And something has sparked to where he's probably one of the most confident Griffins on the ice right now. Just the things he's trying to do and succeeding at doing is putting him kind of above everybody else when he has the puck on his stick right now. He's easily one of the top 3 players on the team with the absence of Berggren, Edvinsson, and Zarnik right now.
So is that, I think we talked about that on a recent episode. Maybe we didn't. Maybe I heard it on a different podcast. But is that not just to claim it on or put the name on Swedish players or people, but does that kind of come with, where you used to play, that they're not as physical, and now that they move over to North America, that they're starting to learn that I can't just rely on my defense. I actually need to have the grit to back up my game.
Yeah, I think that physicality does shock people when they initially come into this league. The AHL is a rough and tough league. It's insane how tough it actually could be. And I think it does shock some of these younger guys when they come over. Elmer, I think, thought he'd be able to walk in and push everybody around, and clearly that was not the case right away. And now that he's figuring that out, it's good to see. And I think as we see more and more of these guys come over, hopefully that's kind of a focus early on in their development. Like, hey, let's make sure we're getting them ready on the physical side of things. Because like a couple guys in this team, if they put on some more size, they're going to be absolute wrecking balls out there. Once Marco Kasper gets a little bit bigger, he's going to be an absolute unit. And like, we talk a lot about Amadeus Lombardi because, he's a late round pick and we see the potential there, but he's got to get bigger. And as soon as he gets bigger, some magic could happen.
I would say, boys, we've been running on these guys that are attacking the pucks the entire time. I just wanted to ask you a few questions about the guys that are defending the puck from going into the net. That one first round pick, Kosa, looks like he's kind of been progressing the same way that the Griffins have been here over the whole year. What have you guys been thinking about that? Starting off rough, but then progressively just getting better and better, then blowing out the waters? What's going on here?
Derek's been wanting Kosa ever since the preseason, basically. So that's why he brings that up. But that's a great question.
That is fair. I'm probably the biggest Sebastian Kosa supporter out there. I believe in this kid, and I think he's got the full tool set that's going to fit the expectations that we all have for him. What we've seen happen with him is we saw him, he went to Toledo last season, right? And started off a little rough there, trying to figure out his way down there. Got his random call up to Grand Rapids last year, got his first win in his first game, and we're all like, okay, we see it. And then goes to Chicago and just gets absolutely lit up. I think it was like 5 or 6 goals that he let in really early on. It was rough. So everyone's thinking, oh God, here we go. And he goes down to the ECHL and still struggles. And then the second half of the season hits, and the guy becomes a literal brick wall. The goalie room between him and John Lethman in Toledo last year was absolutely insane. It's so crazy to me to think of like the numbers that they put up together. But obviously the second half of the season is what it took for Kosa to really figure out his way in that league. Same thing in Grand Rapids this year. He came in and, mind you, the team in front of him at the beginning of the season was terrible. They had no clue what they were doing. They were not gelling. It was just being left hung out to dry all the time, giving up 18 shots against just the first period. Like some really ugly times for him to really try to figure out his way in the AHL. But as the team figured it out, he's definitely figured it out as well. And you can just see like he's the most calm goaltender I've ever seen in net. Like it's a calming presence when he starts in a game. Nick's looking at me weird, but when I see Hutch is on the starter sheet for that night, I'm like, oh boy, this could go one of two ways. It could be great. It could be terrible. I see Coast starting now and I'm like, oh, okay. The boys have a chance to win tonight. He might, I can't remember, Nick, and you'd have to correct me here. I don't remember the last time Coast has let in more than 3 goals in a game. It's been a long time.
It has been a long time.
Like he's really figured it out and he knows how to play the position so well. It was just taking his athleticism and translating it into goaltending because he's an athletic freak. I don't know if you guys know that. Like he's a freak of nature at this point. And one of the things that Rube Koivunen, the goaltending coach in Grand Rapids, has really prided him on was getting more calm. There was a lot of times in the first half of the season where he'd overstep his boundary just a little bit, sliding back to the left or the right. He'd just overstep that and get himself out of position. he's really figured out how to keep himself in there and also just stay calm when there's chaos in front of him. And he also just eats pucks. Rebound control with him is something that's dramatically improved over the last stretch as well.
I mean, they drafted him knowing he was raw. He was going to take some time to develop. I want to see him again next year. We just saw probably one of the fewer times that he's been back-to-back goalie, where he's taken back-to-back games, this week. There's been a few other instances, but it's not been very frequent. So it's something for us that we want to keep an eye on. But he's got a 15-game point streak, and this ties the franchise record right now. His last 17 games, he's 11-1-5. He's at 2.02 goals against, 0.926 save percentage so far. So like
he's on fire.
He's making the moves that he needs to make. I feel like when he did an interview in the beginning of the season, and he said it was a big jump for him to go from juniors to the E to Toledo. Like it was a huge adjustment, and we saw that with him in the beginning of the season. And that Toledo team was good. Now it comes here, just like Brandon said, it takes time for him to gel. You have a brand new coaching staff. You have I don't want to say brand new, but brand new to Grand Rapids. Then you get brand new defensemen. You're merging this whole team, and it's gelling together at the right time. And you see Kosa's taking that. The only reason I say Brandon says it's the calmest goalie he's ever seen, but he doesn't watch enough Trey Augustine. So because that kid is extremely calm in net. If anybody watched the Michigan State game last night.
Yeah. I know. I see what you mean by that there. One thing that you got to remember with Kosa is like everyone, I mean, I know everyone wants him in Detroit. Everybody does. Trust me. I want to see him get there myself. I think we had to see him earn that starter spot in Grand Rapids. Dan Watson doesn't tell people who the starting goalie is. He splits it dead even almost the whole season. Sometimes you'll see back-to-back games and you go, okay, he's leaning towards that hot hand right now. Next season, I think you'll see him officially take the starter's crease in Grand Rapids and get a majority of games for sure, depending on who's also partnered with him in net. We don't know if it'll be Hutchinson again or who it will be. That's a whole big question mark for the offseason for this team. And I think next season is where you could see if the Wings have an injury in goal, Kosa would be that guy who gets called the backup at that point. Then the following season, I think you see, okay, Kosa is the backup in Detroit. And then we start to go from there. I think that's the trajectory we want to see from him. And if that's exactly the way it goes, that's perfect in the development of this prospect.
I mean, that's the big thing everyone has to remember, too, is goalies are completely different than the regular NHL player. They take many more years to develop their skills and whatnot. And even though he's up in the AHL now, playing 30-some games a year, that's getting pretty close to NHL level. But at the same time, we pretty much want to see him at that starter right, hitting 50, 60 games. That way he is fully ready for being able to be called up. There's an injury, like you guys said. He gets thrown in. He's used to it. He's not going to be freaking out having to play a large amount of games. But I do believe he does have some more time, like you guys think, too. He needs to develop a little bit more. Like, he had a great half of this year. I'm one of those fans that wants him up right away. I won't lie about it. Zack already knows this. He's over there giggling because I won't stop talking about it.
I do too.
But I understand. I understand the concept. I understand I got to wait. He's just hopefully going to get better and better, and he's just going to be producing the way he did this half season for the next 2 seasons for you guys. So that's all I'm trying to do now.
My biggest fear is they rush him and we end up with a situation like Minnesota did with Jesper Wallstedt, where they call him up, he gets lit up for 7 goals. They leave him in a game for 7 goals. I don't understand the thought process behind that. He came back to the AHL after that. It went from being a top 10 goalie to dropping to the 25th, 30th in the ranks in goalie. He's starting to make his climb back up again, which is good to see for him. But that's what happens when you rush a guy who's not ready. And we've seen a lot of goalie prospects in the past get mismanaged with this organization. Like I think of Philip Larson is one that everyone thought he was going to come in and be this incredible goalie. Yeah. He ends up going straight to Grand Rapids. Terrible. Gets down to Toledo. Terrible. And now he's off somewhere else that we don't know. So patience with this guy is going to be key. And I know Nick's laughing at me because he thinks I'm crazy when I say this, but patience with Trey Augustine is going to be important too. I've seen a lot of Michigan State goalies do amazing things at MSU, and then it doesn't translate. I think the last one that really truly translated was Ryan Miller. So yes, I'm a big Trey guy and I want to see him be successful, but at the same time, I'm nervous.
I only laugh because we talked about former Red Wings as Hockeytown Rundown thing, and you throw out a random goalie.
That might make the honorary mention cut.
I love it.
Yeah. What other questions do you guys have for Grand Rapids wise?
You know,
I got one.
yeah, go ahead.
It's a quick shooter. ASP, how many games does he play for Grand Rapids before he's on Detroit?
Follows Mo's path and plays a full season.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would have to agree. Just to get used to the ice over here. Plus, we can buy a couple of his jerseys. Those are gonna go so high. That'd be so expensive. But yeah, I think 1 year and then he's straight up. So do you guys, I have a question. So we just talked about goalies, but I wanted to throw this out here because Detroit's used 3 goalies this year, pretty consistently, while Husso was healthy. Do you guys think that we're just burning out our goalies because they're just not taking these hefty these loads? Because like Lyon, what was the max that he's ever played?
It was like
15 games, and now he's playing. How many this season has he started?
plus 30. I think he's now at like 35 or something like that. I don't have the list in front of me.
Reimer, same thing, right? Back up, and now he's thrown into a starter position. So like that's another thing of like you want to make sure that these guys get enough reps. You guys want to make sure that the guys are ready. Like Waddy split them last season. He's splitting them this season. Like you want to see Kosa really be that starter, here in Grand Rapids to be able to take that load and not be burnt out by playing 60, whatever the amount of games that, to double that workload. And I think he does a really good job too. And they mentioned this on one of the interviews with Watson is that he mentally prepares them. He gives them the schedule per week. So he knows, and he thinks it's very important to keep the goalies fresh. So not really riding that hot hand, but we're waiting to see this. Like we both want Kosa to take over because we personally feel calmer when he's in net, even though he's getting more of a bigger workload with shots on net, saves, things like that. We feel better with him in there than Hutch. Not that Hutch is playing bad, but it's just a different style,
Yeah, for sure. And I think for us, going into next season, I think Carlo touched on this on one episode that we're probably more than likely not going to have 3 goaltenders next season. I think because of the Ville Husso situation and then the unknowing of what Lyon could do for the team was one of the reasons why you had 3, right? Like I said, going into next season, I don't believe that's going to be the case. I believe it's going to be Ville Husso and Alex Lyon, and it's going to be the 1A, 1B situation. I also believe that we were riding on Lyon too long, and if you just allowed Reimer to showcase like he has done, he's gotten us wins, he's gotten us shutout wins. He is a serviceable goalie for us. However, the whole swimming into the back of your net really does kill me every single time, and his tendency to expose himself when he is in net and just like I said, or how Carlo puts it, the Russian ab twisting machine, right? Where he's like doing this and just like doesn't know where the puck is. He doesn't track it very well. Going back to what I was saying, if there is an opportunity to move on from Husso or whatever, and then you bring in someone who's a little bit cheaper, better than Reimer, doing the 1A, 1B situation, that's kind of how I would like to go about it. And allow Kosa to still thrive down there in Grand Rapids Griffins, because I want him to take over the starting gig, right? And be able to facilitate the 50, 60 games, however long he needs to be able to showcase that he can be a starting goalie in the NHL, or at least the number 1 goalie. And then that helps showcase us, okay, the following season then is when we're going to make you a permanent backup to whoever the next goalie might be, whether if that's Lyon, Husso, or someone else that they might bring in the offseason.
You kind of want to run it like Boston does with Ullmark and Swayman. Really being able to rotate them and make sure that they're fresh. So I like that style. I think it's going to probably go more towards that style in the future here with in the NHL.
Yeah, no, 100%.
I was just going to say, like, we talked about, Nick, I think you brought up the goalies being burnt out. Are you just talking about volume in terms of games played, or are you talking about volumes in terms of games played and shots faced? Because I think that the reason we have 3 goalies right now is because our defense is just not good. Like, I think Alex Lyon with You put Lyon in Boston. Let's take away Swayman. Just a hypothetical. You put Lyon in Boston. He's taking the workload of 50% of the games. No problem. Vegas, no problem. You put him in front of or behind, a sound defense. He is a gamer. Alex Lyon is another one of those freaks. I'd put him in that category. I just think that he's gassed, and it's not because of the games. It's because when you're getting 23 shots against in the first period against Columbus, you're a human being at the end of the day. Like, doesn't matter who's in net. I think I made a comment on one of the last episodes. You could have put Dominic Hasek in net, and this is no disrespect to the Dominator, but you put Dom in net when we went on that 8-game skid. I think we're still on an 8-game skid. Our defense was terrible. So I think the burnout's more of the lack of defense within the organization at this time. Well, not now that Simon's here, it's a little bit of a different tune, but during that skid, dude, it was brutal. Like, yeah, I think any goalie would have failed miserably in that situation.
I don't have the stats in front of me for the Detroit goalies. So what I mentioned was just based off of games played. That's what I figured. When I look at, because we just pulled this up last episode that we recorded, and we had Hutch and Kosa back-to-back stats, and Kosa's got almost 100 more shots against than what Hutch has. A better save percentage, but also Brandon points out is that Kosa's got a lot more overtime games. So there's a couple extra periods of hockey. There's things like that. So that's why I'm like, man, Kosa, like, he's got a big workload because he's getting a lot of shots against, but he's got the same amount of games. So it's an odd stat. I don't know. I want to look more into it because, like, overtime's only 5 minutes. There were some games where they got like 8, maybe 10 shots against us in overtime. So it's something we want to dive into. But on your end, like, I don't know. So it's going to be better coming from you than it is from me.
Yeah.
I mean, to let you guys know, so far, Carlo, for Lyon himself, he's faced 1,072 shots so far this year in 36 games. So it's averaging 30 shots a game, and that's not great.
That's a lot.
That's terrifying for a goalie.
I think he's tired, guys. I think Alex Lyon might need a glass of water. I'm just saying.
Derek, do you have the stats based off the league or just based off the wings? Like, is that comparable? Can you give us another comparison?
I just got that based off the wings right now. If we want to go off our second person, James Reimer, who's faced only 625 shots in 22 games.
So 8 more games and 400 more shots. Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. That's bad.
Oh.
So again, back to my question, it's like, what goalie's going into that situation and succeeding? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's crazy. Those are crazy numbers.
I would say Dominic Hasek.
Maybe we get an extra 4 or 5 points, right? Maybe.
You got to remember too, like, I was looking at Dom's stats when he was in Buffalo, and it was like 8 straight games or something like that, like shutouts. Like, it was just he was on another planet at that time. So
he was a freak. He was another freak.
But yeah, it's it's funny that you bring up Hasek. I think Hasek may have been able to, but no. Yeah, crazy. Anything else you fellas have for Grand Rapids? Anything you guys want to plug?
Yeah,
We're at almost an hour.
Yeah, real quick. If you had to, I guess, number off, the forwards, because let's be real, the Red Wings don't have a pure superstar prospect in terms of the forwards, right? I mean, if you want to put Berggren there, you can, but in your minds, if you had to number them like 1 through 5, or even do like the top 3 that you believe will make the jump next, and where they might be able to fit in, who would those 3 or 5 players be in set order?
From Grand Rapids or just overall?
Let's just say from Grand Rapids currently right now.
Okay. I'm going to go. Oh man, this is tough. Forwards. So let's go Marco Kasper. Let's go Carter Mazer. I'm going to be honest, that's kind of it right now. I mean, Again, Amadeus could make that step if he gets, some more size there. Again, the tool set that kid has is unreal. So I fully believe that he has the potential to do it, but he's got to figure out his way down here. I don't think you see him even crack that NHL conversation probably for 2 or 3 more seasons. So Marco Kasper, I would say, is my top ranked one at this point in time, and then Mazur following up there. And honorable mention to Cross Hannes because he's been figuring it out lately, but something's still kind of lost in that prospect right now, unfortunately. So I'd say between him or Elmer, throw him in the third. Why not?
Okay. What about you, Nick?
So we don't have a whole lot of forwards that are prospects to be called up. I mean, you guys have Sarnik, who's not really a prospect, but he's coming from the Griffins organization. But if you're looking at the next 5, I would have to put Marco as probably one of the top, just like Brandon, Carter Mazur. You got Elmer. I would say Amadeus is probably in that top 5. I don't. Cross is always so wishy-washy. I don't want to. I had him on there, and then Brandon took him because I know he's Brandon's favorite player. So I don't. We really don't have that many. Like, we've had a lot of people be moved. Like, I had a big scope on Kirill Tatayev, and he went back to Russia. We still have Buchnikov, who's in Russia. Yeah. We have Red Savage, who's at MSU. That's another forward. Nate's still in juniors. I'm just trying to think of somebody. The Dower Nilsson twins or brothers. Yep. They're still overseas.
You can throw another name at you, Nick.
Yeah,
because he's in Toledo. Alexander Doucette. There is something there.
I was going to ask that question. I was totally going to ask that as a follow-up.
Yeah. He's doing really good down there.
He is. He's having an incredible season down there. I mean, just trying to figure out. I mean, again, this was a random signing that we had out of the queue. And of course, everybody tears it up in the queue. Goalies have a tough time over there. Yep. And the numbers he put up there were unreal. But I mean, talk about his time in Toledo's 47 games, 16 goals, 19 assists for 35 points. He's a plus 12 on their team right now. He's in the top 10 in scoring on that team. There's something there. What it translates to as he moves up, I don't know. He's definitely a long-term look, but what he's been able to do down there is, he's become a key part of their lineup. And being able to do that first season on a team down there whose the forwards are already very well established. I mean, Brandon Hawkins down there, if you guys aren't familiar, he's 84 points in 63 games. Like, he's an unreal hockey player for that organization. Well, it won't ever translate to the AHL or NHL, unfortunately, but I think Doucette's someone just to kind of keep an eye out for over the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm really excited for that. The one good news out of the losing streak is that we fell into the Tej Ginla race for draft.
So I've been hooting and hollering his name for quite some time now. I want me some Tej, dude. I really do. Not just for the name, but just for the way he plays. I mean, it is just, he's a freak out there.
That's kind of the guy that we need for the organization. So that's I think Steve now focuses a little bit more on the forwards for the next couple. Just to be able to get some more to fill the cabinet on that side. But I mean, defense, we're solid for a little bit. So,
yeah, I guess that was going to be my follow-up question is that the biggest need that you can see Steve Yzerman approaching? Is that what you guys would want on the Grand Rapids Griffins side? Following up with the first question, since it seems like that, or it doesn't seem like it's well known that Grand Rapids or just the Red Wings pipeline right now, we don't have that young stud that plays left or right wing anymore, right? I mean, that was Lucas Raymond and I guess Jonathan Berggren. I mean, you could throw Mazur in there and everyone else you guys called, but there's no one else really that can just take over the reins like that and just you can plop into the top 6 for you guys, right?
Yeah, I mean, that would be nice to have something like that, something on the scoring side. I mean, defense was addressed in comparison to last season, just looking at the stats, Grand Rapids had 255 goals against last season. And this year, as it stands right now with, 12 games left, only 170 goals against. Defensively, they figured things out.
Yeah.
Offensively, we're at 180 goals for this season. We could use a few more of those. It's good to see a positive goal differential down here. That was one thing we didn't see last year by any means. But some more scoring, some more, I want to say center depth, but
yeah,
we can't track faceoffs in the AHL. That's one thing that we hate. They don't give us those stats. You can't find them anywhere. I'd really be curious to see what Marco Casper and Amadeus Lombardi are doing in the face-off dot, because I feel like it's not good. If I'm being honest, I feel like it's pretty bad. So that does concern me as things translate into the future. Is our face-offs going to get better?
Yeah, I mean, the face-offs has always been a concern for us, being able to see it. That's correlates right to our power play, we feel, and also our overtime losses. So seeing that, if we could get those stats, that'd be fantastic. But I mean, we have Nate Danielson. Who knows where he ends up next year? I think he's going to be here based off of size.
I believe so too.
And he's a center, so I mean, that's going to just fill in either Sarnik, Casper, or Gedger signed another year. So I mean, he's here. So it's try to find those wingers. We've been just putting our veteran guys on that wing side to be able to suffice. But yeah, like we need scoring. We need the wingers to be able to drive a line like somebody like Lucas Raymond. We'd like to see it from Elmer. I mean, that would be a perfect spot for him. But we saw a lot of it from Berge, really. And without him, like, we still been able to put up points, able to get wins. But I was nervous losing him because I was like, who's going to fill that role? And Matt Luff has really turned in and taken that spot for us. Doesn't score the same way, but he provides a different aspect to the team and still gets the same result.
I mean, yeah, Luff stepped it up, but I mean, Shine's got 5 points in his last 4 games.
Yeah,
he's suddenly the second in scoring on the Griffins behind Berggren. Like, I don't know where that came from, but it happened.
Not the empty net goals, I'll tell you that.
No, it's not. He misses those a lot. But anyways, yeah. Anything else, boys?
I don't have any.
I think that covers everything I thought of.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, we always like to give the end of the segment. We always give our guests a chance to plug what they're working on, tell the people where they can find them and where to listen to their shows or anything. So, you guys, the floor is yours. Tell the people all about where to find you.
Yeah, you guys can find us on pretty much any social media platform: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We're even on Threads, believe it or not. I don't even know if people actually use Threads enough, but I still post on there. I'm the one who runs the socials. You can find us, like I said, at Hockeytown Rundown on pretty much all of our socials. We do our videos on YouTube and on Spotify. We're currently working on other platforms to get us out there, but yeah, that's where you can find us. I do have, like I said, I run the socials, so I have my own Twitter account, which is Zack Trathen. Hockeytown Rundown, I believe, is the handle for that, and then as well as our own. But yeah, that's where you can find me, at least. Derek, Carlo.
Listen to what Zack said, because I don't use my social medias at all. I just use it to like our stuff.
I have to tell him every time socials are up, please go share. And then 3 days later, Derek shared it. Thanks, dude. Better than nothing.
You're a lot like me then, Derek.
It's rough world.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, find me on Twitter. Drumline is my handle, and always online and looking at just all things Red Wings hockey. Obviously, the Grand Rapids Griffins will be sprinkled in there, as well as Toledo as well. But mainly, it's a lot of Red Wing stuff, deep dives, a lot of questions. I put up a lot of polls as well, just to kind of get a feeler and a gauge from majority of the fan base on certain topics, because that really does give us some good content to mull over, whether it be pre-show or during a show. So, and we love the engagement with fans. That's one thing I think we try to do a really, really good job on, is engaging with fans and their thoughts. No opinion is a bad opinion. You know what I mean? Everyone has their take, and we love exploring them all. So, YouTube us, Spotify us, Twitter us. We are waiting for you guys to jump in, dive in, so we can have some good discussion.
Awesome. I love that. That's fantastic. Nick, did you have anything else you wanted to add real quick?
Can I just ask one quick question? I'm so sorry. I just thought of this as, like, you and I think our minds were on the same wavelength on this one. So the three of you guys, would you guys give us Hole and Petrie if we gave you guys Brogan Rafferty and Wyatt Newpower?
Yeah.
Please. That'll help us out with the cap hits alone. So yeah, go ahead and take them, please.
So these two are jumping off the quick, and I'm sitting here thinking, can I think about it?
It's funny that Nick only says that because somebody posted that take last night. And we were like, and you just said no bad take, or there's no bad takes, and we heard that and we were like, holy buddy.
Yeah, you want to take a prospect instead of these two guys. I mean, they're good, but like take the prospects instead of these two guys.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh man.
No,
That was-
we appreciate you fellas coming on. This was good, and we should sync up some more and help each other out. You know, we're both young podcasters. Not in age, but just the age of the podcasting.
Be nice, eh? Be nice.
We'd be more than happy to do another video with you guys. Honestly, I think that this was fantastic. This was great. Honestly, it definitely helps us out understanding more about what's happening in Grand Rapids side of things. Even though Derek lives on that side of town, he needs to start going to games more often with you guys, I believe. So
Yeah, sync up.
We head down to Kalamazoo anytime Toledo's in town too. So we'll have to catch you down there sometime.
I'll be down to go to those games whenever. Let me know.
Yeah,
We
for
definitely
sure.
will.
Yes. No, thank you guys for joining. This was great. We'll definitely do this more in the future here. Thank you for all your insight and all the questions on Grand Rapids, and we will talk to you guys soon.
Love you. Bye.
And that was our collab with Hockeytown West Podcast. Honestly, boys, that was a lot of fun. I very, very much enjoyed it. Honestly, Brandon and Nick gave us a lot of good insights about what's going on in Grand Rapids, asking us great questions about, what we're kind of seeing and hearing for the Detroit Red Wings and our thoughts on everything, And so what did you guys take away from Brandon and Nick's insight about what's happening with Grand Rapids and some of the players that are there?
Well, they definitely don't seem to want us to steal any of their good players away, but just to let them know we are definitely going to be doing that a lot.
All in good time, though. I mean, I thoroughly agreed with them that, we have to marinate these prospects as best as possible. Like even like someone like Kosa, not to go too deep into it, but we will. But Carlo, what do you think overall?
Awesome collab to have their wealth of resources within their experience in watching the Griffins has been great because they're going to know a lot more just because they've seen so much more minutes of games about certain players, key players that I know we're all excited about. But I think the message all the way from the Detroit Red Wings down to the Grand Rapids Griffins, is patience, and it's really about tempering expectations because there's a process to it, and I know we've all been patient long enough. To all the Wings fans out there, I get it. We all get it. But there is a process, there is a plan, and they broke it down very, very well. So it was great to talk to them and great to tap into their minds about the state of the Griffins right now, what's to come, and, of course, what we can look forward to in the near future as well. So awesome collab. Enjoyed every minute of it.
Yeah, and so hopefully we can expect more in the future. And so we'd like for you guys to enjoy that run with us while we try to do more things with them and hopefully other Red Wings related podcasts in the future as well. But I kind of alluded this question to Brandon and Nick, but I didn't ask it this way. Do you guys believe, after listening to what they're saying, is Kosa kind of in that mix to be, or currently is, the most NHL ready out of the prospects that are currently still there? Or would you still place someone like Albert Johansson ahead of him, or maybe even someone like Carter Mazur? Because they had a lot of good things to say about Kosa. They really did. Albert Johansson too. So
he really came out of a shell. Like I asked them those questions, and they really came out with like how he started working it. Like it's never started out well at the first season, but halfway through the season, he started just dominating. He just has to find his way. I feel like that might be the same thing that comes up with the NHL. If we put him up, it's not going to look pretty for a first half, but then he's going to find his footing, and it could. But at the same time, goalies are that weird little breed that take a lot longer to be able to produce what we want to see in the NHL. So, and he's a young guy still. I'm not really worried about pushing him too much yet. Even though I nonstop say how much I want him up in our league, I'd rather him not get dominated, embarrassed, like they said about that poor Minnesota AHL goalie getting sent up to get 7 goals scored on him, sent back down. That's not what I want to see. But
yeah,
He's looking good.
Yeah,
So it's
he was
hard to
never the
argue.
same. Yeah, I'm with you, man.
Go ahead.
I think those three players are pretty much dead even. Like if it was a bar graph to showcase those three players, for example, I feel like that bar graph would be very, very even across the board. Like I think we need to see them all have a full successful season, especially Kosa. A full successful season, you know, not just the latter half or the beginning half. It's like, what does this go? What are his numbers looking like after a full season with a full workload, whether it be, you know, 30 games, 40 games, 50 games, whatever the case may be. You know, the bigger the sample size and the better the numbers, and that's going to dictate obviously if he's going to be NHL ready. But I would to answer your question directly, Zach, I think those three players are probably Costa's probably a little bit higher because he seems to be turning on right now, but they are so close. It's a game of inches within that group of players that you called out. And like Derek said, I would like to see them go have another successful season, and a deep run, and then kind of see what happens in the offseason with the Wings to determine who's got to get called up. So we're close, but this is the hard part, right? Because we have to temper our expectations. We're all pumped about it because they're studs down there for sure, but we gotta let them cook a little bit still.
Yeah, I would agree. You know, you definitely got to let them marinate a little bit more, right? And that's not like I said. Well, I didn't say this, but I'm going to say this now. Yeah, I don't think he's exactly NHL ready, but I would put him in the top 3 currently as one of the most NHL ready prospects that we have outside of Berggren, Edvinsson, Zarnik. I guess if he's not really a prospect, but he is someone who's called up from Grand Rapids Griffins. But I would say he's probably one of the most NHL ready ones out of the bunch. I always forget Marco Kasper. I don't know how I can forget about him, but you can maybe say Kasper's a little ahead of him only because he's already played in one game. But yeah, I think the obvious thing here to do with Costa is definitely let him get a full starting role, right? And that sounds like, based on what we talked about, that's the direction that they might go in. Dan Watson does like to do the 1A, 1B thing, much like how Lalone does with his goalies at the start of the season, because we don't have a clear-cut number one ourselves. But eventually you have to put that pressure onto Kosa and let him figure it out, right? But I agree with you where we need to see it consistent, much like how they said, just being consistent and, you know, no first rough half, no second rough half where you're good in one half and one in the other. You need a full, like, if he can play and start in like 50 plus games and look good majority of the time, I think that gives you a better understanding on when you can finally call him up, because much like Derek said, I don't want to see him get obliterated much like Jesper Wallstedt did with the Minnesota Wild. That's the last thing I want. They'll figure it out eventually over time. It's not like we're in a rush for Sebastian Cossa. Trey Augustine just became, you know, a Big Ten champion after beating University of Michigan. And so I don't know when Augustine's going to come up, but I kind of hope that they're both with Grand Rapids at the same time, because then I feel like that both will feed off each other. Right? So yeah, let's go ahead then and jump into, you know, what we've seen about Simon Edvinsson. It definitely sounds like Nick and Brandon are dearly missing Simon Edvinsson, but it also seems like that they're doing quite all right without him, as much as they hate to see him go. So what have you guys noticed from Simon Edvinsson other than his big body polarizing the op? Because that's exactly what he's doing. I feel like he's doing fantastic, like we mentioned in that little segment that we did there with them.
I mean, I'm not worried at all at this point. From what he's showing us, like I said with them and with Nick and Brandon, I'd rather the mistakes be made with Edvinsson than with Petrie or Hall or anybody who's not named Mo Seider. So I am completely content with his performance so far. He hasn't let anything bad go past him. He's making the right plays. He's doing well. And I want to keep him up here, which most likely we will be keeping over the remainder of the season.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think I take it back to when Costin got traded and Detroit got back Shemek, I believe is how you say his last name. And I kind of thought about that. Like, I wonder if this guy is going to be a plug type of player to slot in for Edvinsson when he gets called up, because I think the writing was on the wall. Edvinsson was going to be called up. Probably would have been called up sooner had he had not gotten that little injury that he went through. But nonetheless, it sounds like, just based off of what Nick and Brandon were saying too, that this player that came back has filled in very nicely. I think they described him as like kind of an older Simon Edvinsson, right? Which is great, because that means we can have young Simon Edvinsson, and we can have him learn at that age to become, an elite, or hopefully an elite, but a top 4 defenseman, which is kind of the dream in and of itself around him. So I think he looks fantastic, though. He looks like a pro. I don't see a world where he gets called back. I mentioned it on the video with the boys there at Hockeytown West. Like, he is communicating, he's dictating plays, he's telling people where to go, he's taking away lanes, blocking shots. He looks like he's been playing at that level for quite some time, and that's not a knock on him. I know he's been playing very, very well with Grand Rapids, but to come and do that in the NHL immediately, having those high impact chances blocked or just shut down, is awesome. And then, I don't got to tell you guys about the goal. I mean, I mentioned it earlier. The goal that started with his long reach, to see that, the poise, the presence of mind to do that, keep the play alive, and then 20 seconds later to the back of the net. He looks so good. I'm so glad he's up. It's officially Edvinsson'S season around here. And I'm very, very pumped about that, because he, Lalone talks about how Larkin slots the 4 lines a little bit better. I'm starting to think Edvinsson really gives us a good slot or reslot of the defense lines too. And I think we're starting to see that. I mean, dude, look at the score of the Nashville game. Like, we played a very good game as a 5-man unit. All 4 lines were rolling. Yeah, Larkin's back. Sure, that had a lot to do with it. But I think Simon Edvinsson has a lot to do with it too, low key, because the defense just looks like a completely different defense in comparison to that skid we were on. So, yeah, Simon Edvinsson is a stud. He's here to stay. I don't see a world of him going back down. And slowly but surely, this defense is starting to take some better shape. So we'll take it, man. We'll take every minute that we can get him.
Oh yeah. It's been a breath of fresh air. Can't ever say that phrase enough, especially when it's good things, right? I mean, it's been nothing but good things with him. So I'm very thankful to have a Simon Edvinsson on this roster now. Hopefully it's for the rest of the season. Hopefully it's into the playoff season as well. We're very close. Very close. I mean, we're only up by a point. We're waiting for the Washington Capitals game to be over. I'm not sure exactly what that score is right now. As I pull it up, it is still 0-0 in the second intermission. Winnipeg Jets just need to pull it through. Just one goal. And you can't sit there and tell me the trades that the Washington Capitals made in the offseason, they technically didn't do anything to get better. They got rid of Kuzi. I'm pretty sure they got rid of a couple other players too. And they've been
how'd they get better?
Good as of late.
Like, that's my confusion. What happened? Trade deadline started, and all of a sudden, like, Washington Capitals are blowing up. Like, no. Go back to the beginning of the season where you belong in the go there. Go back. Let the Red Wings have what they want.
Maybe we should give them the priority waste patch on Derek.
I think so. I think that's the next one that needs to be taken down. Go get them.
Yeah, it's pretty much coming down to the Washington Capitals and New York Islanders. And at one point, it was the Buffalo Sabres, but we just need Tampa Bay to keep losing. Now they have 83 points to our 78. We have one more game played than they do, 2 more games than the Washington Capitals. After this one, it's just 1, but it's getting close. It's getting down to the wire, boys. It's making me a little anxious.
Yep. Well, it's going to be a photo finish. It's going right down to the last few games, unfortunately.
Much like last year. Yeah, I feel like that's just how it's going to be from now on with the NHL. I mean, every game is close. Every team is, good. And it only takes that one team to go red hot, much like the Nashville Predators and the Washington Capitals. So one can only pray. Fingers crossed. We're hoping. You guys can.
I guess, Zack, so people can see what you're trying to do.
There we go. All right. I'm still learning over here. All right. All right, boys. I think that's it. We can go into our final thoughts.
Well, let's go Red Wings. It's been a long recording day. We're going on about 3.5 hours now. I love it. But, it was a good day. We had a good little mingle with the boys over at Hockeytown West. Thank you again, Nick and Brandon. It was great to work with you guys. Hopefully we'll get to do a lot of stuff with you soon.
I'm just going to ditto whatever Derek just said. I'm just kidding. But yeah, let's go Red Wings. Brandon, Nick, Hockeytown West, thanks for having us on your podcast. We definitely do appreciate it. Hopefully our fans will enjoy what you guys provided to us just as much as we did. And I'm sure they will. But yeah, can't wait for what the future holds and doing more episodes with them and, other podcasts too. We'd love to connect with y'all and experience the joy of putting our minds together and tackling what the Red Wings do this off season, and for future seasons. So yeah, my rant is over. Let's go Red Wings. Carlo, take it away. Bud.
Let's go Red Wings. I mean, I can't really, it's hard to follow up those two because you kind of nailed it. But yeah, big shout out to Nick and Brandon at Hockeytown West. Those guys were a great treat to talk to. But you know what? Tomorrow, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Detroit plays the Capitals. Or sorry, not tomorrow. They play the Capitals. When do they play the Capitals? They play the Capitals on the 26th, which is on Tuesday, sorry. And I will say, Simon Edvinsson is going to score. And that's it. Those are my final thoughts. Simon Edvinsson is going to score. And it's going to be a dandy. It's going to be a big dandy. And I hope you all are prepared for it. You can best believe my FanDuel's firing up right now, too. I'm just saying.
I was going to say, after those good call-outs that you've made lately, I'm surprised you're not a Mega Millions winner by now.
Well, nobody would ever know anyway, but I digress.
All right, boys. I think we're good, right? Derek, you look like you wanted to muster up something there before we hopped off.
I mean, if we're going to start calling out goal scorers, might as well say what I've been saying. Patrick Kane OT winner again, baby. Let's go.
All right. There we go.
Here for it.
Y'all heard it here on Hockeytown Rundown. And we want to thank y'all once again for stopping by and watching this lovely episode. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up. Let's get it to 20 likes. Follow us on Spotify and rate us the 5 stars. Derek, hold up your hand, please. Thank you. All right, boys. Yep. Without further ado, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thanks for joining us once again. And we'll see y'all on the next one. Goodbye.
Thanks, folks. Take it easy.
Bye, y'all.